Hi, this is Lee Langdon. Today on the podcast, I visit with Dani Branson. Dani and her husband, Bret, have been at Memorial for a number of years, having moved here directly after they were married. They have been leaders and champions of our young adult ministry during their entire tenure here. Dani is super smart and super diligent, and she always has been able to accomplish a lot when she puts her mind to it. We talk about her large family in her hometown. We talk about studying to become a nurse after being called into that profession. We talk about bringing kids into the young adult ministry world and making it look natural. Enjoy this conversation with Dani Branson and get to know her and her family when you can. Okay, guys, let's jump in. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5. Welcome to the Young Adult World Podcast. Dani Branson, welcome to the Young Adult World Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm so glad you're here.
I am so excited to be here.
I interviewed your husband last April.
Oh my gosh, it was that long ago?
It's that long ago, and I've been dying to have you on here.
Yeah, I am excited. This is my first podcast.
Your first podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to it. Where were you born?
I was born in Tyler, Texas, which is about 30 minutes from my hometown. I grew up in Canton, Texas, born and raised there my entire life. Lived in the same house since I was about one. Little small town of about 4,000 people. Grew up there. My entire family is pretty much still there. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, mom, dad. Everyone was within about 25 minutes of each other.
Your whole family's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. That's common, I suppose, in the South in various places, but I love that. You go home to visit and you see everybody.
Yes, I am lucky that I can do that.
What is that? Did you do that at Christmas?
Yeah, we did.
What is that like when you go home for Christmas and you have to see everybody?
You know, it's busy because we are trying to fit everyone in. And obviously now with the kids, we want, our kids to have grandparent time. And that's more so who they want to see. But I'm excited to see my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and now all of their kids that they have. I mean, I think this year there was 40 of us.
Wow.
With about 8 kids under the age of 1 and then several other toddlers running around. And so it's just a great time to see each other and see each other as adults because, we grew up together, but we don't get to see each other as much anymore. And it's just such a big blessing to get to have that time with them.
Sure.
We don't always get to do that.
You have siblings.
I do. Mm-hmm.
I know you have a younger sister.
Yes.
Is that all? Or?
So I have a younger sister and a younger brother. They're twins, almost 6 years younger than me. So there's a pretty big age gap. My parents would probably say that I was a big rule follower growing up, but the thing I got in trouble for the most was being a third parent, stepping in maybe when I shouldn't have been stepping in.
I know because I spoke to Bret about this. You lived across the street from him.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
When did it happen?
So Bret and his family moved to Canton, I think in our 7th or 8th grade year in junior high. And so they moved to my hometown and they moved down the street from us is where they originally lived in Canton. Some of my first memories of Bret when we didn't know each other was he was mowing the lawn, and if anyone knows my husband, he hates mowing the lawn. It's one of his least favorite things to do. He has allergies, and it makes his allergies terrible. But he would mow in a stormtrooper helmet.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yes, and so that's some of the first memories I have of him, and some of the first memories my parents have of him, is that we drive down the street, and they would see somebody mowing the lawn in a stormtrooper helmet.
That's so funny.
And then some of their first memories of me, I think, I ran cross country, and so I was always running around our neighborhood practicing, and so he and his dad would always see me just running.
In your elementary age, you apparently were pretty bossy. I don't know. No,
Yes.
What were you like as a kid?
The biggest rule follower that you could probably find. School started at 8 o'clock, and my grandpa took me to school, but he knew that I liked to be on time, a trait that he instilled in me. Like if you're on time, you were late. So I needed to be a little early. So if I was not one of the first couple people at the school, I was upset that day. Then at home, I think I became the center of attention when I got a little bossy with my siblings. But for the most part, I was just a very big rule follower. I take things, and probably still do, but I took things very literal. So like if I was told to stand on a spot, I was going to stand there until someone told me otherwise.
Yeah. I bet that steered you into being a good student as well.
Yes, I was a good student. Well, I guess I'd like to say that.
What was a subject that you excelled in? What did you love to study?
Oh, I really like history, social studies. My dad was a social studies teacher and a coach for a little bit before he changed professions. And we just always liked talking about those sorts of topics and just kind of knowing that history and knowing your history can affect your future and that it's important for us to pay attention to. Yeah. So I really liked learning about history. I really like sciences. I did not like physics. That was my 1B, and that was not my area, but other sorts of sciences were fine. Chemistry, biology, those were all good. But really probably history as far as like enjoying the learning and feeling like, oh, like I am learning, but this is something that I do really like to learn about. Yeah. I'm a big reader, and so I liked the tie-in to that with reading. That was really fun. I like historical pieces. So pieces set, primarily I would say early 1900s are probably my favorite time period to read about.
What would you say is a book you would recommend the 1900s? If people are listening or thinking, oh, that sounds interesting.
Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers is such a great book. I mean, it's got some biblical basis in it, a different time period that's set, and she's just one of my favorite authors.
So you ran cross country. Mm-hmm. Did you do that in middle school and all the way through high school? Or tell me about cross country.
Being in a small town, you had the opportunity to kind of do a lot of sports or do as much as you wanted.
So you played a lot of sports then?
Mm-hmm. I ran cross country and track. I was a cheerleader, and then I played basketball all 4 years of high school.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So you go through high school. Mm-hmm. High school was good for you. Mm-hmm. What was your friend group like?
So my friend group was so wonderful. Still some of my closest friends, and truly like the reason that I came to know Jesus. And gosh, I could like cry talking about it. I met them all in youth group. I had one friend who kind of like told me, like, hey, like you should come to our youth events and like try it and see. And I was like, okay. And I just like fell in love with the people there. And like I said, that eventually helped me to fall in love with Jesus. Bret kind of came into our friend group a little bit later because he moved in junior high and high school. But just truly, like I went to college with two of my friends from high school. We were roommates all 4 years of college, and just still some of my closest friends today. When we go back to Canton or go back that direction, we try to make time to see them as best we can, but still in close contact. And we spent so much time together doing everything.
So what was faith like? What was growing in your faith through high school? What was that like for you?
My parents are great and wonderful, and I had grown up knowing about Jesus, but church was not always a priority to like go to in my household. And so once I met my friends and I, started going to church and seeing them and learning about Jesus and realizing that I wanted it to be a priority in my life, it was something that I had to decide early that that's something I wanted to do. And my parents were always willing to like take me and, go, but it was just something that like if I wanted to go to, I had to be the one to pursue that and to be the one to bring it up. Super blessed and grateful because my siblings are believers and my parents are now very involved in church. And it's just a little bit different than when I was growing up. But the example that my friends helped me to set and helped me to develop has just really trickled through my family. Yeah. And it's been a really beautiful thing to see, and something that I prayed for a long time, and something that God has just been so gracious to grant and to just show me that, things can change that way, and things that you think are kind of big things and things that may not change have changed. So our youth minister and his wife, Joe and Megan, they are wonderful people. And I was very close with Megan, and we, in a classic story, we were at camp and so I had just been talking to Megan about things for a while, and was like, I do think like that I want to follow Jesus and I love him. And so we had talked through some things, and then she just started talking to me about like, it sounds like you're ready. And, the next steps for that, like we need to follow Jesus and what he did, and you need to get baptized. And so then that was something like that we went home and talked to my parents about. And then I got baptized. I think it was August 14th. And then my parents have been so supportive of that since. And like I said, have come back into, really being involved and just showing the life and love of Jesus to people. And so that's been really great to watch.
Yeah. And, now you have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, do you imagine trying to give them a similar experience?
Yeah. I think that it's so important for our kids to see just like the impact of the church and what church can look like, and how, Bret and I try to be really intentional about being here and being involved and just showing our kids, Ezra and Ian, it's a priority because we love Jesus, because of how much he loved us. We want them to make the decisions for themselves about coming to church, and we want them to come to church and to want to love Jesus. But, that starts with us talking about that and being the example of that.
Well, let's go back. So you graduate high school, and you have to make a decision because your boyfriend is there. And I mean, I know what decision you make, but you guys decided to go to different places.
There was definitely a decision. And I think Bret and I were just very open and honest with each other, which is kind of hard at 18. It's kind of shocking when I talk about it now. But, we just decided like, okay, he feels like he needs to come to OC, and I feel like I need to go to A&M. And we felt strongly like the Lord had put both of these colleges on our hearts. And we just made the decision like, we don't feel like we need to break up at this point. And so we're not going to, but, we just felt strongly about where we were both being called to go. And so we were like, we're going to go with it, and we're just going to see how it works out. But it was the right decision for us. And I think it helped both of us grow as adults and get out of our comfort shells by not having each other, with us all the time, and allowing us to kind of spread our wings and learn things, but still having each other to fall back on. And so we, it was the right decision, but it was a hard one for sure.
Yeah. What did you decide to study when you were there?
I think in the back of my head, I thought I'd be a teacher, and teaching is great. I knew I wanted to work with kids in some form or fashion, some capacity, but I had no idea what that was going to look like. That summer, again, back at church camp, the Lord just, the clearest that I've ever been like spoken to or like gotten a word from him was just like nursing.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like, oh, okay. And so I sat with it a little bit, not very long. I was a teenager. So, sitting with things then is a few days. And I went home and I told my parents, and again, they are so supportive. They would let me go to the moon if that's, but they both laughed. They were like, is this our daughter? Like, did you trade with somebody at camp? Like, what happened?
Wow.
And I was like, guys, I don't know. I said, but like, this has been put on my heart. And I think like, if this is really what the Lord, like, he's going to follow me through with this. Like, he's just going to push me past these fears and these things that I've dealt with. And he did.
Wow.
And I know that I'm blessed in that I've had that calling on my life, and I felt so strongly about it. That there are people who, don't necessarily get that with their careers. But yeah, and it had worked out. A&M hadn't had a nursing school for a while, but they had a new one that was kind of going in place and had been in place for a few years. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm just going to take this as like, I'm going to go to A&M, and I really want to be there. And hopefully like the Lord will open the door for that nursing school. And if not, then I'll kind of figure out nursing school after I graduate. But it was really the Lord that put that on my heart. And like that, I've not had issues since. Like I've dealt with it for 10, I've been a nurse for 7 years and a nurse practitioner for a year. And it's just been a really beautiful thing that he's allowed me to do and showed me how I can help people with it.
So you became a nurse and you worked in the hospital, I suppose?
Yeah, I worked at Oklahoma Children's Hospital for 7 years. I was in the pediatric ICU. I sat with a lot of parents on their very worst days, and I held kids and watched kids go through things that are just unimaginable and things that are so hard. But I would not have been able to do that without the Lord. I got the privilege to pray for people on a regular basis. Got the privilege to show people love, to show people that like, hey, just because you're having a really terrible time, like, you still have people surrounding you and you have people fighting for you. And like, I'm here to do that. And, it's not something that I take lightly. but it's something that I had the privilege to do. And so
Yeah.
I was really, really grateful for that. And just, again, felt like a confirmation of like the Lord knew, 10 years ago when he put that on my heart, like I'm going to get to make a difference with these kids here. And I did. And
Yeah.
I still am, but I'm not in the ICU anymore. So a little different setting.
People need people of faith in those moments. And I don't think they even understand that until they're in that moment. You decided to become a nurse practitioner. What? I don't know the difference. So tell me the difference between a regular nurse or whatever and a nurse practitioner, and what did it take to get there?
So a nurse practitioner is more on the, I guess we would say like a provider side. And so like now I work in a clinic. I work at just kids pediatrics. So still seeing primarily kiddos, but I'm able to see them for like all sorts of things, kind of like what a doctor sees them for. I have a doctor at the clinic who I work with, and so she helps me out at times when I need it.
Wow.
So I went back to school after I had Ezra, my first son, so about 2022, and got my master's degree. And so it takes at least a master's. Some people have their doctorates with it. Oh, I don't know how many clinical hours, but probably 300 or so, maybe more clinical hours of going back into school, back into learning, back into being unpaid for, a good portion of that. Nurse practitioners, when you go back to NP school, you kind of specialize. You decide like family nurse practitioner, pediatric nurse practitioner, women's health nurse practitioner. There's different schoolings. Physician's assistants, when they go back to school, they're able to take more rotations. And so they can kind of jump around to different career choices, whereas we're a little bit more specialized once we go back to school. But physician's assistants, if they, decide like they're doing family practice, and so like a primary care clinic, and then they decide they want to go do like psychiatric care, they can just apply and go do that job. Nurse practitioners, we usually have just more specialized clinical hours, and so we'd have to go back to school. But overall, our roles are very similar in the clinic.
Yeah.
So when I had my son, I didn't know kind of what life was going to look like. I had never really imagined myself being a stay-at-home mom. But obviously seeing your baby, you're like, I don't want him to be with anyone else. Like, I want to be here. And so I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was still in the hospital at that point, but those hours, it's 12-hour shifts. And so you're gone all day, and you're working some weekends, and you're working holidays, and again, it's a sacrifice when you have that kind of schedule. When you're not married or even married with no kids, it's definitely easier. And I was like, I've kind of talked about becoming a nurse practitioner. And honestly, Bret gave me a big push because he was like, you can do it. And he was like, and you're probably not going to want to do it if we have more kids. Like he was like, things are not going to get less busy or easier.
Now's the time.
Yeah. So he was like, if you think you want to try it, then like, let's go. And he kind of jokes, but he's like, I follow through with things. Like he's like, if you say you're going to do something, like it's just done.
You totally are that, Dani. There's no doubt. I've seen this many times. I love it. Okay, let's talk about your kids for a minute. We already mentioned Ezra and Ian. How old is Ezra now?
Ezra is 3.5.
3.5. He's awesome. And of course, Ian is 2. How old is Ian?
Ian is almost 15 months. So he's 1.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite thing about being a mom?
Oh, that's so hard. There's so many things to love about being a mom. I think just right now, it's hard. We're busy. There's a lot of things going on in our life. But again, I'm lucky with my schedule that I'm working 3 days a week. So there's 4 days a week that I'm home with the boys, that I get to wake them up, or that I get to be there when they wake up. And just like how much they want to be around me right now is something that I don't want to take for granted. And it can be hard because sometimes it's a little inconvenient when I'm like, no, like just sit in that chair by yourself and let's like eat our breakfast, or let's do this. But like they both just want to be like sitting with me and just want me to be around both of them. And they're so like Ezra right now is so into building things or doing things and then wanting me to watch, and so it's something I want in my head to be like, oh, this is not a forever stage, and something I want to enjoy, where it's like, oh, maybe he's built this, little thing with magnetiles, but he's like, Mom, look, like, look. and something that I want to be excited for him, because again, I'm like, it's just, at some point it's going to be like with his friends or with, just something that he's not building these little things anymore. Or he's not wanting to like impress mom or, just, he's not going to want, his life is not going to revolve around me forever. But it's just so sweet right now that, he wakes up, well, and Ian too, but they both wake up and they just, they want me and they want me to be with them. And it's just so sweet. Yeah. And so it's fun with two toddlers.
There's nothing like a sleepyhead child walking in, their eyes trying to still focus and reaching up to you. And
I know.
Mom. That's so
just
great.
Sit in your lap and just laying there.
Well, soak it up. It sounds like you are. You're soaking up the moment.
We have some days that are better than others, for sure.
You guys have been a part of our young adults ministry for a while now, and I don't know how long, but I know when I got here, and that was, I don't know, over 4 years ago now, you guys were strong leaders at that point. So tell me about how you've been plugged into the young adult ministry. In what ways do you lead?
Yeah, when we first moved here, so we got married on a Saturday, and then I had not started my job yet, and Bret had just started a job, so we didn't have any like PTO or time to like take a honeymoon or anything like that. So we got married on Saturday and we drove up to Oklahoma City on Sunday.
Wow.
I'd been here a few times to visit. Bret had obviously lived here. We go into OC. And, we knew like this was going to be new for me. I'd went to college with some of my high school friends like we talked about. And so I'd really never been in a place where I didn't know anyone. I knew Bret and that was it. So we came up here and we both knew we wanted to be involved and we wanted to be plugged in. And again, I'm just not one to say no to things for good or bad. But we started coming to Memorial, trying to find a class and a space for us and what we thought was going to work. And so that took some time, I think, and that took some patience, figuring out just like where we needed to be. We were recently married, and so we were trying out like Reach and some like the marrieds class, and it just wasn't the right spot for us. And that was kind of hard to figure out and hard to accept, but it was like, Bret had some friends here. And so we were like, well, let's just go try like their small group and maybe like, let's try this class. Like we don't have to just separate ourselves because we are married. And so we ended up going back to what is to Launch, because there wasn't Dwell. And so we went to Launch and we got plugged in with a small group that met on Monday nights. And then really we felt like that was where we needed to be. It was just a place that clicked and a place that felt right. And so it was more people that had recently been out of college. Reach was like a little bit older. And so I think that's kind of where we were just feeling just not as connected. And so we just were like, after a few weeks, we're like, okay, this is it. And so we're gonna commit and make it a priority. And again, I think that's just easier when you don't have kids. And like I said, I had no friends. I had no one up here that I was close to besides Bret. And so he knew that was important to me and that was gonna, just be vital to our time here in Oklahoma. And just making sure that I had people that I could talk to and feel comfortable around. And so we plugged into our Monday night small group and we're still there. And so it's been really interesting to see the group evolve and change and, develop into what it is today and add people. And, we've seen some people move but it's still like Ellie Johnson just got married, and like some of the people that aren't in that group anymore that have moved or gone, came back to her wedding. And so like that was so sweet. Like we took a small group picture and we had just everybody that had really ever been in the group. And I'm like, there was probably 35 people in that picture.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so, like it is just the community that we've built. And, now we're in the Dwell class and like there's other kiddos in that class. And so again, like those are our kids' cousins. Like Ezra's asking for like, where's James Garner and where's Kat? And, those are his little friends. And then like he's looking for Kayla and Jeff to, play with them. And so it's just, those are our community and our people. And we knew like when there was nobody else up here and that was how it was going to be.
It is special that you guys have been such strong leaders for so long. I'm so grateful for you guys and the work that you do.
When we first got here, we went to one of Bret's friends' weddings. And we ended up sitting beside some people at the wedding who were from Texas and kind of a small town, like not too far from Canton. And, we were talking about being from Texas and, there's always Texas versus Oklahoma, all that good stuff. And they were like, yeah, like we claimed Texas until we had our kids and our kids were born in Oklahoma. And we were like, okay, maybe at this point we should start saying like we're from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So Brett and I were like, great, we have time. Like, we'll probably be gone before we have kids and back in Texas. And, now you look up and we've had 2 kids here and we're still like, like we're still kind of from Texas, but it has definitely been different than what we imagined. But we're, again, so grateful to be here. And we're here because of the community and our people. We for sure couldn't be here raising our kids without our families nearby if we didn't have all the help that we have.
Well, you guys are such a blessing, and I'm so grateful that you've been on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Yeah, let me encourage everyone to get to know Dani and Bret and Ezra and Ian. That's such a sweet family, and they are truly a blessing, and I know that you would love to get to know them. But Dani, thank you so much for being on the Young Adult World podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I hope this conversation was meaningful to you. Come find us on Instagram. Our profile is Young Adult World Podcast. Tell us what you connected with during our podcast today. This podcast is part of the Young Adult Ministry at the Memorial Road Church of Christ in Edmond, Oklahoma. Come join us sometime. There's plenty of room for everyone. If you want to reach out to us, don't hesitate to email us at youngadultworldpodcast@gmail.com. And we are so grateful for Jacob Staten. Jacob is a young adult who edits this podcast for us and keeps this thing going. So thanks, Jacob. Okay, guys, see you next time for another Young Adult World conversation.